At this point, I think it would be nice to invite Professor Collins up to go ahead and perform Invitation.
Just a couple of quick comments about the solo section. Professor Miller gave me this great solo section playover. It's quite long and has a lot of development, which is great in one way. You know, if you use that time to develop something, you can do some really beautiful things. The downside of a long solo section, and often I hear young players miss this subtle point. When you have a long time to play, they tend to jump in quite heavy at the beginning and utilize their every idea that comes into their head instead of doing any development of any sort. And suddenly they're burned out in the first third of the solo, and there's really nowhere to go but sort of continue to grind out the same stuff. It gets boring for the rhythm section, it certainly gets boring for the listener. The couple comments I would have is be sure, A, you really know the tune. Those of you who are watching this video, if you don't know the tune Invitation, you're probably not understanding the subtleties of what Professor Miller was just talking about, and you probably won't understand all the improvisational moments in it either. So I would suggest start by learning the tune Invitation. It's a popular tune and well worth knowing. The other comment is one of the things I as a soloist would feed off of are the same things Professor Miller used to derive the arrangement. He's talking so much about thematic development. This beautiful melody of Invitation is one of the reasons it's become one of the choice standards for jazz soloists to improvise. When you have a melody that's constructed with this sort of angularity, that's a beautiful bit of melodic material that one can work. And just before we play the piece, you guys play the first chord of the tune, the C minor chord, and just vamp on it for a moment on the C minor. What I'm going to do is just play that melodic figure, that angular collection of notes, starting on different pitches that make sense with this chord change. Now, some of the notes will be a little dissonant. I'll have to resolve those as a good soloist, but it's about working with the theme in a way that draws the listener in and connects the solo on this piece to this actual composition. So it's not just a bunch of chord changes with me playing notes, but it's me soloing on the composition Invitation. So here we're going to vamp on the first chord for a minute. 1, 2, 3. And how exciting I can generate ideas just based off the first part of that melody. The same techniques, playing things backwards, playing things with added notes, embellishing the theme to create a solo that's interesting. The more you understand theory and harmony and how notes can work, what notes are dissonant, what notes are consonant, and how to resolve those things, you can do more and more and more with this thematic style of playing. You must know the chords, you must know the harmony. So when we do the performance of the piece, not only are we, of course, going to try to do the best we can to represent the arranger's intent with the ensemble, but when I, as a soloist, approach it, I'm going to try to get inside the score. So I'm not only reacting to what these guys are doing as a jazz soloist, playing thematic lines and harmonically interesting improvisations, rhythmic things that allow us to communicate, but also I'm going to respond to Professor Miller's backgrounds as though they're a pianist interjecting an idea in the middle of my solo. So as a good soloist, I'm not going to ignore that play over. I'm going to try to become a part of it. And certainly along the way realize that I have 3 full choruses to fill up before I'm done. So I want to take my time, introduce some ideas to let the listener know this is the bunch of stuff I'm going to be working with. And then my goal is to try to create an improvised composition within the Invitation composition. Not just play the chord changes and play a bunch of fast licks, but actually create something special for this particular performance of the piece. Hopefully that's what you'll hear now.